Hello and welcome to Mindful Living, where we explore the art of living with the intention, balance, and inner peace. I am Avik, your host, guiding you through conversations on health, meditation, mental well being, mindfulness, and the mind body connection. Each episode features expert insights to help you grow, heal, and thrive. So, take a deep breath, relax, and join us on this journey to a more mindful and fulfilling life. So, let's get started.
Hello and welcome, listeners, to another episode of the Mindful Living podcast, where we explore the many facets of mindfulness, healing, and personal growth. I'm your host, Sana, and today we have an inspiring and deeply moving conversation lined up for you. Our guest is not only a storyteller through various mediums, but also a mental health advocate who has dedicated his life to raising awareness about suicide and grief. After losing his brother to suicide in 2001, he embarked on a transformative 7,000-mile cross country bicycle journey for suicide awareness and the healing power of art. He is the host of two mental health focused podcasts, Inner Monologue and Stages. And he recently published his book, 2012, A Bicycle Odyssey. So, listeners, join us as we delve into his incredible journey from tragedy to triumph, the role of art in healing, and how he's helping others navigate the stages of grief. So, meet Thomas Brown. Thomas, welcome to the show. It's an absolute pleasure to have you today.
Thank you for having me. I'm super grateful for being here. This is gonna be fun.
So, Thomas, can you take us back to 2012 and share with our listeners what motivated you to embark on such a monumental cross country bicycle journey for suicide awareness?
Well, I had done a walk with a group of people in 2006. I wanted to walk with them. It was a group of Christians. I myself am not Christian, but I really resonated with a lot of the things that they were going for. To me, it was a very human, compassionate, empathetic journey. So I volunteered to do that, and I ended up actually getting the unpaid position of being a production assistant for a documentary filmmaker. So I did do a lot of walking, but a lot of it was backwards, and I had a camera on my back, on my shoulder.
Mhm.
I was in need of doing something to shake up my life at that time, and that walk came across my path exactly when I needed it. And we walked from Phoenix, Arizona to Washington, D.C. It took 5 months. And I really think that opened me up. I was a very codependent person, very lost person. There was always things that I wanted to do. I just didn't have the courage to do it, go on a journey by myself. I always wanted other people that were interested in similar things to go with me. And it didn't matter if those people were toxic or not. And I finally, after going on this walk, I just found a bit more self-confidence, a bit more passion to go out and do things on my own. And the pendulum really swung from like being codependent to being super independent. And when the idea for the bike ride came up, I was in a space where I was slowly growing, becoming more of a confident person. I was just ending a very, very toxic relationship,
Mhm.
and I wanted to do something like the walk, but I wanted it to do something that I was passionate about. I wanted it to do something for that, like that walk. That was somebody else's vision. I wanted my own vision,
Mhm.
and I had recently become friends with this gentleman, Zach, who had also lost his brother to suicide.
Uh-huh.
And Zach was the first person that I had ever met that had lost somebody to suicide outside of my family. So it was really helpful at that stage in my life to have another person who not only lost somebody to suicide but lost their brother to suicide. So there's kind of this unspoken knowing that we had when we communicated with each other. And after having a conversation one night at a bar, we said, "Hey, wouldn't it be great to do a bike ride across country for suicide awareness and
Uh-huh.
meet other people, learn from other people's experiences,
Right.
learn from their journny of grief, learn what tools they used, and along the way meet some activists that have been doing this much longer than we had, and learned about their trials and triumphs in trying to change the mentality of people's feelings around suicide, because for a long time suicide has just been taboo. It was something, if it happened to your family, you just kind of like swept it under the rug, and
Exactly.
my family member died, but we don't want to talk about how they died. And I
Mm.
think that one of the things that we learned on the bike ride was the importance of postvention. Postvention is the next generation's prevention, and postvention is essentially having support groups for people who lost loved ones to suicide. And in order for people to know that there's a support group available to them, we as a society, and I'm speaking, for my culture because it's the only one that I've lived in and traveled through in the States, but I think it transcends to other cultures, is that like any type of subject that might have been taboo, if it's something that is hurting the
Mhm.
society, that the first thing that you need to do is start talking about it. So having open dialogue and a fearlessness in talking about what were considered taboo subjects like suicide and mental health only made it easier for other people to find help if they were suffering from that grief.
Absolutely. That's really moving, Thomas, and thank you for sharing this. Also, how did the physical act of cycling, and that to over 7,000 miles, help you process the grief of losing your brother?
I think more than anything, by the time we did the bike ride, by the time we started the bike ride, it was like 10 and a half years after I lost my brother. I
Mhm.
don't think I would have been able to do the bike ride. And
Mhm.
I'm speaking for myself.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if I would have been able to do the bike ride if I was still grieving my brother. I might have been able to do it on my own and just ride, but
Mhm.
I don't know if I would have had the emotional, spiritual, or mental bandwidth or capacity to speak with other people about their grief.
Mhm.
So it was, I think that I'd been in therapy for a while. I'd really worked through and processed that pain.
Mhm.
And so I feel like I was ready to do the bike ride in the way in which we did it. And that was like the primary focus was meeting other people.
Hmm.
And we a lot of times, like I would say that the cycling was really kind of an escape from those conversations, because we would have conversations as small as like six people
Uh-huh.
to rooms that were filled with hundreds of people,
Uh-huh.
and having these long conversations over and over again.
Yeah.
When you're it's hard enough when you're having like really intimate conversations in a room with six people, but when you're in a room filled of 300 people, and once your presentation is over and you've had some dialogue with a few people in the crowd, you're there for like another 2 hours while people come up and just talk to you, and you're sharing these same like devastating stories over and over and over again. And it's a lot of it's a lot to take on that emotional content, that emotional weight and energy that you take from each other. You give and take from each other in conversations. It's one thing if you're just having a random conversation. Say you have a job where you're talking with people for 8 hours a day, but it's about benign,
Mhm.
services that your whatever company or business that you work for provides,
Mhm.
and you could be exhausted just being on the phone for 8 hours a day. Like that in itself is exhausting. The act of talking is expelling and expressing energy.
Yeah.
So when you're having those conversations on about a much deeper, emotionally charged topic like suicide, it takes a lot out of you. And so getting on the bike and riding the next day was almost a respite from the conversations, the highly emotionally charged conversations that we had the night before.
Hmm.
So if anything, it wasn't processing my brother's death because that had I already done, but I was processing other people's stories on the bike.
Great. And Thomas, art plays and it played a key role in your healing journey. Can you throw some light on how art became a part of your path towards recovery?
I don't think maybe for some people, I think for art is an interesting topic because there's a lot of people who don't consider themselves creative. They don't consider themselves artistic.
Mhm.
Um, but we're surrounded by art all the time. We're surrounded by the art of the architecture in the buildings.
Nature.
Uh, Nature, of course, nature is the ultimate teacher of art.
Let me.
We're surrounded with the advertisings of products constantly, the art of cooking, the art of we always think of art as like just painting and maybe literature or poetry and music, but it's part of every aspect of our lives. And for me, being a big book nerd and music nerd and movie nerd, a lot of my great connections with people begin through um, talking about those things that I enjoy and listening to people talk about the things that they enjoy. And I think art is really, really important. I think any society that diminishes the power of art is a society that is on decline because art really challenges the status quo when it's done intentionally. It moves culture forward. So
Exactly.
for me, art is just something that it always moved me. It inspires me. It motivates me, whether I'm in you know, whether I'm acting as the witness of art, either a finished product or in progress, or if I'm creating something myself. And I don't think that people need to create in order to be loved. I don't think people need to create in order to pay their bills. I think that like within each person, there is this need to just create, and the process of creating itself is a tool, is just one of many tools of self awareness and understanding who you are. I think art helps us understand who we are. On an individual level and who we are on a cultural and societal level.
Absolutely. That's really profound, Thomas. What a view on art. Great. So, what were some of the most profound moments you experienced during this Odyssey, especially in terms of personal growth, awareness, or maybe just exploring the wonderful secrets life has?
Um, so I would say I'll try to fit in two if I can. The
Oh,
first one was this realization that like life and existence is created through experience. And sometimes, like it doesn't have to just be a human experience. It could be an animal experience. It could be a cosmic experience with a star exploding, sending out minerals and elements across the cosmos to that'll get swirled up in a gravity well and create a new star and new planets and such. And the universe, this is a bold statement. It could be wrong. I don't know, but I've come to find that like the universe and experiences don't really care about our feelings. It's us who create. It's our egos that like need to define an experience as a good or bad thing. And I think the reason why we do that is because we need to process something. Like something happened to us, we need to understand it, and that's our processing function. And so we're going to label it as a positive or negative thing.
yeah.
But once you are able to get through the wilderness of
Mhm.
mystery and get to the light on the other side and get on the other side of processing that experience, I think that's when we're able to detach from negative and positive, and we look at this thing that happened to us as just an experience. And at that point, we get to ask an even deeper question to ourselves. This thing happened to me. I've processed it. I am processing it. I've moved away from it emotionally in a way. Now I need to understand, do I want to be a victim of this experience, or do I want to be a student of it?
Exactly. Exactly.
So if I want to be a student from it, what are the lessons? The victim is, why did this happen to me? The student says, what is here to learn? And I think that, like, it's important for people to understand that when I say this, that being able to get to that point is a point of privilege. There's some people that, like, are constantly living in survival mode for whatever means. Maybe they're in an area that is stricken with famine. Maybe it's war torn. Maybe they're in abject poverty and destitute. But for the rest of us that aren't forced in this survival as to not die at any means, that there's a point of privilege where we can get through the processing of an experience and then say, okay, what am I supposed to get from this? How am I supposed to learn? And I think that was something that, like, hit me because I was on a paddleboard with Zach and an activist that we met in Pensacola, Florida. Her name is Rayla. And we were all just kind of circling each other, laying on our paddle boards, and it just hit me, like, all this stuff that had happened that I experienced. Like, I wouldn't be here in this, like, very serene, peaceful moment if all these events didn't fall like dominoes.
True.
And to go even further on that, I met the love of my life at the end of the bike ride.
Wow.
We, every single place that we went to, we had our primary contacts. I usually talk to most of the contacts, probably like 98% of the people that we engage with. I was the primary contact with those individuals, and I would call them like a day or two before we arrived, and it would usually be like a 5-minute, 10-minute at most conversation. And before we arrived at our destination at Journey's End, which is the Chapel of Sacred Mirrors,
Right.
which is an art retreat center in upstate New York, I called my contact that I had a professional relationship with via email for the last 6 months of the journey. I called to talk to Sharon Steluto, and we talked for about an hour, and it just she was very easy to talk to. It felt like somebody that I had known for a long time, and I was just catching up with an old friend. And we were like I said, we were on the phone for about an hour, and as soon as we got off, she had such a pretty voice. I wanted to see what she looked like, so I Google stalked her. And there's a very beautiful woman at the end of those images. And we dated for about a year and a half, almost 2 years, 3,000 miles apart, because we didn't want to just rush into it. But I finally convinced her that you don't have to shovel sunshine, and she moved from the Northeast here to Arizona. And just, like, I look at that experience and I'm like, if my brother doesn't die from suicide, I don't get on my bike and I don't ride across the country. And if I don't ride across the country, I don't meet this woman that, like, changed my life. So I think it's important to understand that, like, experience is just experience. And sometimes what we have to define as a good experience can lead us to a bad experience, just like a bad experience can lead us to a good experience. But I think it's important for us to be mindful, practice awareness, not only of ourselves, but the world and the people around us, and to try to, as best we can, try to understand an experience that happens to us and not be pulled down by it.
Definitely. Definitely.
It's a journey. It's very hard. It's easier said than done. I will admit that. I understand that. I'm sympathetic to that. But, it's important to be open to that journey to get to the point of, okay, am I a victim or am I a student?
Exactly. Exactly. Wow. That was beautiful, Thomas. So, moving on to your podcast, Inner Monologue, it gives a platform for others to share their stories of trial and triumph. How
Yeah.
has that experience of hearing other stories impacted your own healing process? What were the biggest takeaways or, the learning experiences you had or you're having?
I just love storytelling. Inner monologue is
I
something that I haven't I haven't done that in about a year because I
Mhm.
was really focusing on getting the book done, and now I'm kind of like promoting myself. It's the first time I've done that. So, but I still have like over 300 episodes of conversations on of inner monologue up on our my Rise Frequency podcast channel, and
Mhm.
I love stories. Whenever I work for a library as well.
Mhm.
This is all my passion work that I do when I'm done with my job. And I love the library because it's all about information and storytelling. And I love stories. Whenever a new person comes, I just want to know like who they are and what they're about. Like I don't want to know how you're doing just today and have that really basic dead day-to-day chit chat. Like I want to know what your hopes and your fears are. I want to know what turns you on and lights your fire and your passion with the things that you're passionate about. So that was really like the main focus with inner monologue, is just giving people a platform to kind of share their story. And even if it was something that like I never really thought of about like how it would change me, even though those conversations did. Now they woke me up to a vast number of perceptions and perspectives. But my main goal for that was like, if there's somebody out there that feels like they haven't had this, that nobody else has had this experience, and that they're all alone, my
Mhm.
hope would be that that person who feels alone would listen to a guest and be like, you know what, that person has the same experience that I have, so maybe I'm not alone. There is at least one other person out there that gets it. And that was really like the main intention. But I'm a big fan of story. We all have stories. Like our planet is made of stories, and no matter how different we are and what part of the planet we were born on, and no matter how different we look from each other, there are
Mhm.
still fundamental connections to our stories, and our, whether they're cultural stories, religious stories, or personal stories. Like we're all human beings, and we all have, there's this underlying connection that all these stories have, that brings them together, and that is our humanness. So I'm a big fan of story. I love reading, I love watching movies, and I love talking with other people and hearing about their experiences here on what I call Starship Earth.
Super, super. And with Stages, which is your latest podcast, you have also shifted to sharing your own mental health journey. So, through this podcast, what takeaways listeners can get, and what inspired you for this direction?
So Stages is more of an audio diary, and sometimes an episode could be 15 minutes long, sometimes it could be 30 minutes long. It
Mhm.
really just depends on like what I need to get off my chest. I started Stages 6 months after my mom died by cancer. I became the caretaker of my father. He's still able to live on his own, but like it was very, my parents' house was very much a matriarchal
Mhm.
um environment, and my dad did all the grunt work, but my mom ran the show, so I've had to learn how to run the show.
Mhm.
uh just so I take care of I'm in charge of all my dad's finances. I take him to doctor's appointments,
Mhm.
make sure that he's eating,
Mhm.
just all that stuff. So it's just Stages is just me processing what it is to like get older, what it is to grieve the loss of a parent, what it is to just grieve in general. Because I've also talked about losing pets and friends, and what it is to create art. And it's just like anything that a human can like experience. I just kind of like talk about it. Like every 2 weeks I sit down here in the office, I fire up the microphone, and whatever is in that's occupying my mind and my heart and my soul, I kind of just like lay it down and talk about it. And hopefully, yeah, I really do that for myself. But if there's anybody out there that might be going through some of the similar things, hopefully, it could be beneficial at the very least of them like hearing somebody else who's dealing with the same thing. I'm very open with stages as much as I was even with inner monologue. I feel like if you try to get somebody, if you're asking for inner monologue, if you're asking somebody to be vulnerable, you yourself as the host have to be vulnerable, especially in like a long format conversational interview. But with stages, like I'm equally open, and just even when I have realizations about my blind spots and my character, and like I'd like to share those with people, just be like, wow, this is something that I just realized about myself. And it's not the healthiest thing, so I like to talk about everything, joy, sorrow, grief, and just learning, walking through life and learning about it.
Wow. And before we wrap up, Thomas, as someone who has helped others process their grief through your work as a facilitator, what advice would you give to those who are struggling to cope with the loss of a loved one?
There is, if you've lost a loved one, just realize that grief is not a straight line. It's not a linear line. You could feel great for 20 days and then wake up on the 21st day and just feel miserable without even having like a memory. It's just you just get up and you feel that way. So you have to be patient with yourself.
Mhm.
You have to be patient with yourself. You have to be compassionate with yourself. You have to love yourself and give it time. You will get through that dark forest. You will find light on the other side, and hopefully one day you could be a lighthouse for other people. Now, if you're a friend of somebody who's lost, who's suffering from grief and dealing with grief, it doesn't cost anything just to be an ear. You're not going to solve their problems. You're not going to take away their pain. But if you can just hold space for them and be a witness for them and listen to them and give them time, even if you've heard it 1,000 times before, it's important just to be an ear and to show your presence is the greatest gift that you can give somebody when they're struggling and dealing with grief.
Definitely. And what message do you hope readers of your book, 2012, A Bicycle Odyssey, take away from your journey and your story?
I think by the time they get to the end, if I've done a good job as a writer, they will get to the point that the only game in town is awareness.
Mm-hmm.
You must first cultivate self-awareness and then hopefully some spatial awareness, which is your environment and the people that you interact with on a day-to-day. And then hopefully through empathy and compassion, you can also cultivate social awareness. And that is a greater understanding of not only the plight of the people around you, but the plight of people around you that look nothing like you. But I think awareness, know thyself, self-awareness is the only game in town.
Yeah.
If you don't know who you are, then you're going to have an entire world demanding who you should be.
Exactly. Exactly. Wow, Thomas. So, if our listeners want to access your book, your podcasts, maybe connect with you as well, share their own stories with you, how they can do that. So,
Just go to risephoenix.org. Rise Phoenix, RISEPHOENIX.org. From there, there's a link to the book, which is sold on Amazon. You can also get to the social media accounts on Instagram, Facebook, and then also there's a link to the Rise Frequency podcast channel, which has both stages and inner monologue on there.
great. We'll mention all the details in the show notes for all of you listeners. And Thomas, thank you so much, firstly, for joining us today. And secondly, sharing your incredible story of resilience, healing, and transformation. And of course, your dedication to raising awareness about suicide and a willingness to share your personal journey with the world. It's truly, truly inspiring with hard hitting facts, yet with some beautiful stories. So, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I'm super grateful for the opportunity to share my story with your audience.
And for our listeners, be sure to check out the show notes for connecting with Thomas, accessing his book or his podcasts. You can refer the show notes along with this episode on your favorite podcast platform. And to add, healing is a journey. And by sharing our stories and take every experience as a learning experience, to have self awareness, we help others as well as ourselves find our path, their path. So until next time on the Mindful Living podcast, stay present, stay mindful, and take care of yourselves. This is your host, Sana, signing off. Thank you.